Greetings. Chapter 12 focuses on political crime and terrorism. And really, your author starts in a very important way by defining ideology as a distinctive belief system, idea, or abstract ideal. And this is extremely important to understand this concept because it will be the basic theme that we'll see throughout this chapter. So, an ideology is a distinctive belief system, idea, or abstract ideal. And some examples that he provides, for example, communism, capitalism, fascism, and then also different religions. And so this whole idea, you'll see, works as a guide to social and individual behavior. So it's a belief system that becomes internalized and then acted upon. And so this is real important because what we're really trying to do is understand how people think and how they interact and how they behave. So a political crime are criminal acts committed for ideological purposes. In other words, the perpetrator believes that they are following a higher morality or a higher cause. And so you have a variety of reasons that might be provided, such as changing the political system or a moral, ethical dimension, or perhaps a religious cause. And so we get these and a variety of others, and sometimes we can have combinations. Certainly we could use more research on political crime in criminal justice work. Different types of political crime. There's crimes by the government, such as violations of human rights and civil liberties, and there are crimes against the government, such as illegal demonstrations and espionage and assassination. And then your author goes into a discussion of many of the legal aspects, recognizing that political crime is not a political crime is not a legally recognized concept. People don't get charged with being a political criminal or committing a political crime in that sense. So it's really more of a sociological term that is very useful in conducting analysis. Obviously, political science and psychology, anthropology would use the terminologies as well. Then your author talks about the Nuremberg Principle, that human right violations committed as a result of carrying out orders are not justifiable. And of course, this came out of the trials of the Nazi killers. And then your author discusses crimes against humanity and gets into a overview of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and international law. Again, that's a whole nother course in itself, international law or human rights. We actually have an entire course on human rights. We also have an entire course on genocide, and we have an entire course on terrorism. So again, we're just having a brief overview here, and hopefully, if some of these areas of interest, you'll pursue these areas in further courses that really specialize in these areas. So, looking at some crimes by government, your author presents some various examples, such as human right violations, which would include having slavery or death camps, genocide, and also having secret police, looking at crimes committed against women and children, honor killings, for example, infanticide. And so there's a whole lot of different crimes by government, that government can commit all kinds of crimes. And also crimes against government. And I already mentioned a few, but we've seen some of these that may become illegal protests or demonstrations or sabotage or assassination or terrorism. And your author presents an interesting overview typology by Clark of assassins, political assassins who commit assassination for political reasons, egocentric assassins who tend to want acceptance and recognition and are aggressive in getting that, psychopathic assassins who have problems relating to others and have emotional issues that end up having a rage against political figures. Then there's insane assassins who may have some type of serious mental illness, and then atypical assassins who are those that we haven't figured out how to classify yet. Other crimes against government that are discussed, for example, espionage, and then there's a whole dimension that Hagen presents of typology of spies, mercenary, ideological, alienated, egocentric, buccaneer, professional, compromised, deceived, quasi-agent, escapee, and then miscellaneous. And so again, we could have a whole, discussion or a whole class really on spying and espionage. That might actually be a interesting course to think about in the future for our department. And then certainly we have also seen some other crimes against government, and especially in the media that we hear a lot about is terrorism. And I'm going to link to another YouTube video in the course announcements to a video I made on terrorism that goes into some more specific detail, so I can kind of give you an idea where we begin to focus more on specific areas. But your author does a nice job of presenting a terrorism typology, and so you have political terrorism, non-political terrorism, quasi-terrorism, limited political terrorism, official or state terrorism, state-sponsored terrorism, and lone wolves. So we'll go into some more detail in the other video that I'll link to. Your author also has some examples of myths of terrorism. That, for example, terrorism is a new phenomena. No, it's not. It dates way back. And the idea of terrorism is always left-wing or revolutionary. That's not true. Just like terrorism is always right-wing. That's not true either. We have left-wing and we have right-wing terrorism. It's a myth that terrorism is always highly effective. Often it is not. And so again, a lot of these myths are presented and then dispelled. Your author gives some examples of terrorist groups, and then also counter-terrorism ideas or measures, and talks about things such as diplomatic measures or intelligence gathering, tighter security, legal and social measures, public awareness, military and or law enforcement action, arms and explosives controls, media self-regulation, and maintenance of public composure. Also a brief overview of the societal reaction to terrorism, and then some theory is presented. One thing, though, that I'm seeing a lot more, and this is actually an area right now that I think is evolving, so I'll mention it now, is that that we're beginning to think about the so-called lone wolf terrorist actually may have a support system completely online. And we need to explore that much further, that even though the lone wolf terrorist commits the terrorist act, let's say, alone, and there's no others in the immediate environment, that person may have been re-socialized, encouraged, and provided instructions and directions by people in other terrorist organizations or groups who have recruited that so-called lone wolf. So we're going to see some new information and research coming out about that, looking at lone wolf socialization through online interactions. And this wraps up this video. Thank you.